Hello you guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to give you my list of top plants for beginners if you're just starting out and have a little inkling inside of you that says, yes, I want to plant some stuff in my home. Now, I'm assuming when I compiled this list that a lot of people who are first starting off wanting plants are struggling with the idea of consistently tending to something, consistently watering something and making sure that it's okay. And I'm assuming that because when I was working at a nursery in the past, the number one issue that people had when they came in first looking for plants was, what's the lowest maintenance thing you have, basically? Because a lot of people were concerned that they wouldn't remember to water it. I remember there was one customer in particular that wanted a self-watering container for the pot so that it would like regulate how much water, like somehow it would like go from the bottom like a pan and water the plant, and I was just like, I don't know what in the tarnation you're talking about. But in any case, that is what got me thinking about how to fill this list. Let's start off with the plants that are going to be the hardiest and last the longest without the water. Oh, but also one more thing about this is that this list primarily consists of plants that don't require a lot of aid with humidity. Aid in humidity, so you won't have to worry about getting a humidifier with these guys. They'll be pretty much a-okay. So let's start off with the number one, which is aloe. Hello there. I don't typically see this plant when people are listing out best plants for beginners, but I feel like it totally should be mentioned. This guy is so hardy. Its lighting conditions are pretty flexible. It does prefer brighter indirect light, but it can range in the lighting spectrum from like a lower light to a higher light. I have mine personally in the kitchen beneath kind of like a skylight, you know, a sunroof, a skylight, a light within the hole of the ceiling. And it does fantastically well. For watering, it does prefer to be dried out completely before you give it anything else, and it does prefer to be thoroughly watered. And when I say a plant wants to be thoroughly watered, I mean I will bring it to my sink and put like a hose above it and essentially water, like flush water through it consistently until it's coming out the bottom holes for maybe about like 10 to 30 seconds depending on the mood I am in that day and what mood the plant is in that day. But this one is great because it also has a lot of personal benefits to your skin. So if you're somebody who gets a lot of burns, either because they like touch a hot pan, for example, or they're like laying outside crisping up like bacon, this guy is going to be your best friend. And mine is typically a bit fuller, but the mister decided to go outside in the backyard for like an entire day and turned literally into a lobster. And so because of that, I had to remove quite a couple of the larger leaves on my aloe, but it's fantastic. But moving on, we are going to the jade family. So this guy is a propagated version of a variegated jade. All throughout my backyard, indoors, outdoors, highlights, low lights, I have jades and a whole bunch of different varieties. Even actually, if you look over here, I have a couple others in a little bonsai pot, so that's pretty exciting. These plants do prefer brighter indirect light, and they do like to be thoroughly watered also and to dry out in between waterings. These are great plants for people who like to travel because they can literally go weeks, days, months, whatever, without being tended to. They're really self-sufficient, they're incredibly difficult to kill, and they're fantastic to look at. I mean, this is gorgeous. Even this one, I literally just cut it from a variegated jade I have in the backyard, stuck it in some soil, and as you can tell, there's some new baby leaves sprouting on this. And this one I have exclusively indoors, not even from a really bright window, to be honest with you, but it is sitting on a windowsill. Another really great plant that can do tremendously well in lower light as well as a little bit higher medium light is the, of course, snake plant. This is the moonshine variety. It's all over basically a light neon green, and I think it is gorgeous. It likes to dry out completely in between waterings as well, and you do not want to overwater this guy because the leaves will start turning brown. I don't have it happening right now on this one, but the bottom of the leaves will essentially start to rot and you will lose the leaves that way. So he really likes to be completely and utterly dried out. And one way for you to test, like, dude, how am I supposed to know if the soil is ready to be watered or not, is you can either like shimmy your finger around the top layer of the soil about like an inch or so down, and if it's dry, water then. If it's, if you're unsure if it needs to be watered yet or not, play on the safe side and just don't water it yet until you can tell that it's dried out. Just because, I mean, much like the aloe, much like the jade, the snake plant really likes to completely dry out before you water it. It is not a water-heavy plant. So next up we have ivy. This is an extremely invasive plant, extremely durable, extremely difficult to kill, and will survive in a lower light condition. It may not thrive in a lower light condition, but it will do just fine in a lower light environment, although it does prefer a diffused, brighter light. The soil can dry out thoroughly also in between waterings, but this is the start of the transition in the plants I'm going to list to you, where they prefer to be watered a bit more frequently. So this is the start of a potentially higher maintenance group, and there's 2 more plants after this guy in my list. But the funny story about this one actually is this was considered to be dead by the time that I got this. My dad had it, he was prepared to throw it away, and I saw it and I was like, what are you doing? Why is this, abandoned in a pile of scrap, basically? Because it was puny, it was in really horrible condition, but I just watered it, repotted it, and it has grown tremendously. But one thing to note about the English ivy is that it is poisonous to cats, dogs, and humans. Or, well, it can be poisonous. So if you do want ivy, not a problem. If you're an adult, just don't eat it. I know it looks tempting, but try and refrain from it. But if you do have kitties and doggies, perhaps have it as like a hanging plant where it can kind of cascade down out of their reach so that they don't get tempted to nibble on this beautiful little fella. Next up, we have the pothos. No plant list for beginners would be complete, I believe, without the pothos. There are so many different leaf varieties that come from this specimen, and they're all fantastic. They're all very durable. This is a marble queen pothos, and I love it because of its creamy white mixed with green leaf. But the great thing about these is that they're so durable. They go wonderfully in a lower light condition, and they'll still thrive. You could forget to water this plant for, God, like a week or 2, and it will look sad and droopy and be like, why are you doing this to me? But as soon as you give it some water, it will spring back up and be full of life. It is gorgeous, so durable, and fantastic because it's a really giving plant in the sense that once it grows out, you'll see these little nodes kind of like on the, can you see it? There we go. You can kind of see like the little nodes. But once it grows out like that, you can trim it, stick it in some water, or directly back into the soil, and it will spring out some roots and continue growing from there. So if you like to kind of give your friends plants that you have, or friends, or whatever, I already said friends, but friends. If you want to give plants away, the pothos is a really great one to do that with. So last up on the list, we have the Fetunia, also known as the nerve plant. These guys are really great. They are a tropical plant, and they do require a bit more moisture than say like an aloe or a jade plant, but they are so worth it, and it is such a vocal plant. So you don't have to worry so much about it just randomly dying. It will tell you by its very severely drooping leaves. And don't worry, don't throw it out just yet, just because the leaves are drooping. Give it a big gush of water and it will pop right back up to life. Like this one, for example, this morning I woke up and it was drooping, and once again I watered it and it looks fine and dandy now for sure. In terms of lighting, these guys do prefer less light essentially. They don't want to be the windowsill plants. Their leaves will crisp up, they will brown, it will not be very happy. The soil also likes to be kept pretty evenly moist. It does not really like to be completely dried out. So try to avoid that. And if you have a spritz bottle, this guy will love it. You can kind of give him some extra hydration around its leaves, some little spritz every now and then, and it will thank you for that. So that about wraps up my preferred beginner plants based off of my own experiences. If you have had any of these plants before, let me know in the comments down below, but also let me know if you would like to see any more beginner plants, because I do have some other recommendations. I just didn't want to keep this as like a 30-minute video. I thought I would keep it nice and short and sweet. That being said, if you're thinking of adding plants into your environment, that sounds great, but the number one thing that you need to do is research. You have to really be aware of what lighting conditions you're able to provide for these plants and how much effort you're willing to put into these plants, as well as what possible pests may come about from it, so that you're prepared, because sometimes plants are simply more prone to those type of issues. If you'd like to see a video on what plants would be most prone or more prone to issues such as like pests or root rot or anything of that nature, or simply ones that are higher maintenance and harder to take care of, let me know by giving this video a thumbs up and by commenting in the section down below so that I can look back and be like, well, these people would love to see it, because I will be happy to record it for you guys. So I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and do whatever the heck you want to do that lets your girl know that you liked it. And I will see you in the next video.